Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into what is quickly shaping up to be a massive, impending legal crisis. We are looking at a fundamental, head-on collision between the opaque, kind of mysterious nature of modern artificial intelligence and our oldest, most established legal frameworks. And trust me, the friction between these two worlds is rapidly reshaping how we're going to think about accountability, safety, and ultimate justice.
So here is the basically unsolvable riddle that is literally keeping the judiciary awake at night. How exactly do you perform a legal postmortem on a machine's statistical guess? I mean, think about it. When a highly complex, completely autonomous system causes a catastrophic physical or financial injury, how can the courts possibly establish the root cause if the machine itself cannot even explain its own logic?
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap to guide us through this. We'll start off with the foreseeability crisis, then we'll explore the wood chipper effect, take a look at strict liability, discuss presuming malfunction, and finally, we'll wrap up by looking at deterministic forensics.
Let's jump right in. Section 1, the AI foreseeability crisis.
Ever since the famous 1932 Paisley snail case, which literally involved a decomposing snail found in a ginger beer bottle, the law of negligence has strictly demanded a foreseeable chain of events. Basically, a manufacturer is liable if the harm was a reasonably foreseeable consequence of their actions. But here's the kicker. Advanced artificial intelligence, which is built on probabilistic neural networks, mathematically shatters this historical framework. These models aren't guaranteed, deterministic, if this, then that rules. They operate entirely on mathematical probability. And that means they are inherently guaranteed to occasionally produce unpredictable, emergent failures that no human being ever programmed into them.
Now, here is absolutely crucial context. AI's black box opacity, it's not some natural law of physics. It's actually a deliberate abstraction choice made by developers who are prioritizing speed and accuracy over legal transparency. Legal scholars are quick to point out that developers routinely design these systems to maximize performance at the strict expense of interpretability. By deliberately relinquishing direct control, they're letting these agents operate independently. So the argument goes, tech companies absolutely shouldn't be allowed to use the very unpredictability that they themselves engineered as some sort of legal shield in the courtroom.
Moving down to the metal, we have Section 2, the wood chipper effect.
When you ask an AI to do incredibly complex math, it hands that task over to its floating point unit. And to make this lightning fast, chip manufacturers actually burn proprietary, closely guarded mathematical approximations directly into their silicon. This causes what researchers actually call non-deterministic drift. Because these approximations are quite literally corporate trade secrets, achieving an exact one-to-one mathematical reproducibility across different machines is physically impossible. At its core, the computer is essentially making a really highly educated guess.
And this quote brilliantly illustrates the immediate, real-world danger of that guessing game. Tech scholar Madeleine Claire Elish describes a terrifying reality where humans are forced to act as moral crumple zones. Think about it like a car's crumple zone absorbing a physical impact. Complex AI systems are designed with a human supposedly in the loop so that when the system inevitably drifts and makes a lethal error, the human operator takes the hit. They absorb the crushing legal liability, effectively shielding the big developers from their own algorithmic failures.
To really wrap our heads around why this is a legal nightmare, we need to contrast two completely different methods of computation. AI relies heavily on what we can call the FPU gambler. It's incredibly fast, but it's a lossy process that triggers the wood chipper effect. It blends data so thoroughly that forensic traceability is permanently destroyed. It's literally like a blender. You know exactly what fruits went into it, but you can never ever reverse engineer the exact original components of that smoothie. This completely wipes out the exact chain of title and makes a legal postmortem completely impossible. On the flip side, the ALU surveyor is deterministic, exact, and deals only in undeniable, traceable truths.
Which brings us to Section 3, strict liability for AI. With traditional foreseeability mathematically destroyed, how does the law adapt? Well, legal scholars from the University of Missouri are arguing that because certain AI tools, think high-risk healthcare management systems, have a wildly unpredictable and limitless capacity for harm, they should actually be regulated under strict liability. Now, this is a no-fault legal framework traditionally reserved for abnormally dangerous activities, like handling dynamite or producing atomic energy. The beauty of strict liability is that a plaintiff doesn't even need to prove negligence to win their case. It perfectly bypasses that impossible hurdle of the algorithmic black box entirely. If you look at this grid, it breaks down the University of Missouri's brilliant proposed revision to the classic six-factor test for abnormally dangerous activities. The old test looked at things like whether the activity was inappropriate to the place where it's carried on, which makes total sense for setting off explosives in a residential area, but it makes zero sense for software used globally on the cloud. So they suggest dropping that outdated geographic requirement and adding a really powerful new factor: the inability to foresee harms. This directly targets the inherent, unknowable nature of advanced AI.
All right, let's look at courtroom strategy in Section 4, rebuttable presumptions of malfunction.
Because proving exactly how a black box failed is pretty much impossible for an average person, courts are currently being urged to adopt a rebuttable presumption of AI misfunction. The idea here is incredibly straightforward, but a real game changer. If a plaintiff can simply prove these three basic steps: 1, that it's an advanced AI, 2, that its processes are opaque, and 3, that it's used for high-risk decisions like healthcare or employment, the court automatically presumes the AI is biased and error-prone. This immediately shifts the impossible burden of proof right back onto the tech developers, literally forcing them to explain their own opaque systems.
And this isn't just academic theory, either. What's really interesting here is that international and constitutional standards are absolutely refusing to let black box evidence stand in criminal trials without rigorous empirical validation. The U.S. Department of Justice and the UK's forensic science regulator have explicitly stated you cannot just assume an AI system's dependability because it works well in a controlled lab. In high-stakes environments, procedural due process and the right to a fair trial demand that the evidence must be explainable, because at the end of the day, a defendant simply cannot cross-examine an algorithm. Finally, Section 5, Deterministic Forensics, Restore Trust.
So how does the tech sector actually pivot to survive this impending legal collision? To establish real legal trust, the tech industry has to build deterministic inference engines. This means stepping away from that probabilistic FPU gambler we talked about and forcing AI into verifiable exactness. In a deterministic framework, there's no random sampling, no guessing. If you run 1,000 identical queries, the machine produces 1,000 mathematically identical results, generating a firm, undeniable digital lineage receipt for every single action it takes.
By relying purely on the exact arithmetic of the ALU surveyor, we effectively restore Noether's theorem. This is a really fascinating principle in physics regarding symmetry and reversibility. Translated into the digital realm, this means we can finally work backwards. When a critical system fails, investigators can freeze the AI, look directly at the code, and cleanly trace the exact deterministic steps that led to the error. We completely eliminate that messy wood chipper effect and make a true, undeniable legal postmortem possible. As the semiotic bridge between digital theory and physical reality opens up, and AI begins orchestrating actual, physical actions in our real world, we are left staring at a massive choice. We can either just accept the terrifying legal and moral liability of an opaque guessing machine, or we can demand systems built on absolute mathematical truth. So the question is, will you allow probabilistic noise to govern our most important societal rules? Or will you demand deterministic fidelity? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.